Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's time for the Brown Sports Bag from the heart of the Barrens, a weekly local sports machine. Alongside John Butler, here's your host, James Brown.
Well, John, we're back again this week. We had a pretty exciting Friday night of basketball that we're going to talk about with the Barren County versus Glasgow. It's kind of strange to get this deep into the season. This will be the first time they played each other because I think while you were coaching it up until last year or 2 years ago, they always played like right after Christmas break or right at the end of Christmas break at late December, early January, which was always great too because you have a lot of people in town that had gone to college, that had played, and you would have a packed gym. It was an outstanding atmosphere. It was a good atmosphere, but there was something kind of missing, and it's just so weird for that game to be played so late in the season.
Yeah, I don't think that was the intention, to be honest with you, to do it that way.
Yeah.
The COVID has thrown everything for a loop.
Right.
The rescheduling and so forth, because you don't want to play this late in a year and without playing Glasgow and Barren, and then you play each other within 1 week.
Yeah. And
the reason why you don't want to do that is in case of sickness or somebody's hurt. You don't want to lose both. You don't want to lose your players, because there's a good chance if you got a sprained ankle, you're not playing in a week or two.
Mm-hmm.
And we would always have played 3 district games before Christmas. Allen, Monroe, and Glasgow were all on the table before Christmas, and then afterwards you spread those 3 out that way.
Yeah.
I think they'll probably get back – well, I don't know, because Monroe's leaving the district, so they're going to have to work in Warren East another game, and that will change things. But I think most people would agree that to spread it out is probably the better option, but that was – not really an option this year for many reasons.
Yeah, it kind of, like I said, it got thrown into a mix last year because of the season not starting till January 2nd.
It still was a really good crowd. I mean, it was the best crowd that I've seen in 2 years since the COVID. Part of it was Barren and Glasgow on a Friday night. We hadn't had as many Friday nights, and part of it was Bobby Steenbergen being recognized. There was a lot of people came out to see him. A lot of his former players came out to see him, and I told Coach Steenbergen I think he was probably responsible for probably 300, 400 people just himself.
It was kind of like a homecoming for Steenbergen.
It really was, and that did contribute to the crowd.
Yeah. Let's talk about that real quick because I believe maybe Bobby was influential on your coaching career. You first came as an assistant coach right over at Barren, or did you come as a head coach right away?
No, that's my first head coaching job was here at Barren.
Yeah,
and I replaced Coach Steenbergen. It was the second time, and Coach was the athletic director, and Glenn Flanders was the principal, and they hired me to replace Coach Steenbergen. And
because before that you were Tim Riley assistant at Caverna?
No, not Tim Riley, Mike Deaton.
Mike Deaton, okay.
Yeah, I was at Caverna with Mike Deaton, so I came in. And Coach he was so welcome to me. He helped me out, and he didn't, sometimes, when you replace somebody, there may be a little reluctance there. He was tremendous, and he's always been a great mentor to me. And if anybody deserves to be the first to go in the Hall of Fame, and if anybody deserves to have their name on the floor, it's Coach Steenbergen.
Yeah, you mentioned the Hall of Fame. Barren County starting an athletic Hall of Fame, and he's the first inductee.
Correct.
And he talked about that on Friday night. And one of the interesting things about Coach Steenbergen to me is, he was the first coach of the first girls basketball team at Barren County High School.
Football coach, too.
Yeah, he's a football coach, too. Actually, they were successful in football while he was the coach as well.
Yeah.
And he and the schools had consolidated. There were 2 of them, and then the other 2 came along the next year, which happened to also be the first year that KHSA sanctioned a state tournament for girls basketball, as I recall. Is it 75, I think it was.
Correct.
And so he basically was the mastermind, in my opinion, of taking all these people from the divergent areas of Barren County, some of whom did not want to be in the same school together.
That's correct.
Building a girls basketball team with girls from all over the county and getting all the way to the state finals in that first year. And to me, it set the tone probably, and I wasn't around for this, but people have told me this, Barren County folks, it set the tone for, and I guess, the ability to cooperate and help that school district get on its feet and grow thereafter.
Yeah, what's neat about it, he built the program.
Yes.
A lot of people go, a lot of people can claim building. He built the program. He was the first, and he was instrumental not only in building the program, but building the school district. He was. I was not around either during that period of time, but there was a lot of lot of emotion and anger, a lot of resistance to the consolidation of the Barren County schools, and Coach Steenbergen was on the track of this is the right move to make.
Yeah.
And one thing about Coach, if you've never met him, he is not scared to voice his opinion. He's very, very honest about how you know how you stand when you talk to him. Mm-hmm. And he was always outspoken about the need to do that. And one of the things that unified a divided county was the girls' basketball team and the success they had. And that was, I've heard that from the day I got here, how unifying the girls' basketball team was. And really one of the the girls' program at Barren and that of Allen, to be honest with you, were two of the leading programs really statewide in terms of support, in terms of quality of play. And Barren and Allen will go down in history as two of the leading programs in that regard. And to this day, both Barren and Allen still have great followings in girls basketball.
What's also kind of ironic about that, up until this year, we've talked year in and year out, well, maybe the last 2 years, we've talked year in and year out about the 15th district in girls basketball, certainly since 2006 when Monroe joined. There were 3 good teams in the district every year.
Yes.
And actually in that first couple of years, Glasgow, I think, won over like 25, 27 games in the first 2 years. They had good teams at that time, too. They were just the odd ones out, you know, and that's kind of been the case in the 15th district in girls basketball a lot through the years.
Yeah, it is. It has been a leading district statewide, and it goes all the way back to the beginning. And you got to give Coach a lot of credit and those players that played for him.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the boys' basketball. That we had the matchup between Barren and Glasgow on Friday night, the first meeting of the season between them. Barren won the game 55-52. I talked to Warren Cunningham and Coach Willett after the game, and both of them expressed that they were happy with the effort of their teams, but I'm not sure either one of them were really happy with how their teams executed a lot during the course of that game. It was a bit of a sloppy game. There were some turnovers, some mistakes that kind of left the door open. Like once Barren got a lead, Glasgow rallied, and then Barren got another lead in the fourth quarter, made a couple of mistakes. Glasgow had a chance to tie the game up or at least get, I think, within a possession. They couldn't quite get it done. Barren held on for the win. And it'll be curious to see how that translates into this coming Friday.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a Picasso, I guess you could say, a work of art to watch, and mainly because the shooting was not very good. There was only 2 threes made total in the game. I think Barren was 1 for 17 or something, and it was Stevens hit a big 3 in the corner. The only 3 they made all night from the deep corner, and it was in the third quarter, and it was a kind of a momentum shift. And Glasgow, who's known to be a good 3-point shooting team, only made 1.
Yeah,
and it's hard for me to conceive Glasgow beating Barren if they don't shoot the ball well.
Yeah.
Barren is, they have not shot the ball well all year.
Yeah, they're used to this.
They really are. And Barren relies on defending people, and they're really good in transition and inside. I mean, rebounding is where Barren makes their calling card. So Barren can win that way. Give Glasgow credit. They hung around. They played very inspired, which you think, it's – normally when these two teams play, it's inspired and it's normally close. And you have to think the emotions of last year's district probably were a factor too, especially for Glasgow. But Glasgow had a chance. I thought Sam Bowling was really good for Glasgow. I mean, Barren had a hard time containing him. Glasgow's stats were not put up, but it seemed like he had 18, 20 points. I'm not really for sure how many. Mason Gridge had 26. Now, he was really he had 26 of the 55, and several down the stretch from the free throw line was Mason. So Mason had a good game. I think only one other player was in double figures for Barren. That's Aiden Ike, and he had 13. But it was kind of a slugfest. And
Sam had 19.
Had 19. Yeah, and I thought he was really, really, really effective and good. And he's a good player. I mean, he's been a solid player for 3 or 4 years. He's hard to guard. Didn't shoot a lot of threes. Shoots very few actually. But man, you put him in that mid-range game. He's really good, and I thought Glasgow did a good job of their scheme. They mainly played 2-3, 3-2 zone for most of the night.
Yeah.
And, they stayed in the game, but, Barren found a way to stay ahead. They stayed ahead of them all night. I don't think Glasgow really got a lead, especially in the second half. And
Barren, they tied it up there at the end of the third quarter, but then Barren opened the fourth quarter on a little run and Glasgow never got back within.
Right, but it was close, and you could see how these games could change anytime, and of course they'll have a rematch this Friday.
Yeah. The interesting thing about this, Barren is unbeaten in the district. They don't technically have the 1 seed yet because Glasgow still has 2 games with Allen County and a game tomorrow night against Monroe County.
And then another one with Barren.
It's
hard to believe. Barren's 5-0 in the district because they went 3-0 this week.
Yeah.
This past week. They blew out Monroe and blew out Allen. Not blew out Allen. They blew out Monroe. They beat Allen like 16 Saturday. Yeah. So they're 5-0. They can't be worse than first.
Right. Well, they could be second.
They could be
depending on
tied
how
for
that
first.
tiebreaker would work out if they lost to Glasgow this coming Friday.
It'd be a split.
Yeah.
So it had to be a draw.
Yeah. So then, but of course, Glasgow still has 3 other games left. So we're going to see how that works out.
Well, I think the big thing for people around here to keep in mind is Glasgow, Barren and Glasgow should not. You don't want them playing each other.
No.
That's the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
And Glasgow needs to take care of business with wins against Allen and Monroe.
Yeah, I don't think there's really any chance either one of them. Well, Barren can't wind up as the 4 seed. There can only be 1 or 2, depending on how that works out. Glasgow probably can't wind up as a 4th seed because they've beaten Monroe, and Monroe has not won a game in the district.
No, but they play them again.
Yeah, they do play them again. So I mean, it would be
fluky.
Yeah, it would be fluky if it worked out that way.
Right.
It catastrophic, really, would be the way to look at it. But yeah, so it's interesting how that shapes up. I think Monroe and Allen. I put it down here on the sheet. No, I did not put it down for the boys. I don't guess, but I think Allen has the 1 win over Monroe. Otherwise, they don't have a win in the district because they lost twice to Barren. So it's going to be interesting to see how it works out. I still think Barren and Glasgow are clearly the better 2 teams in the district.
I don't think there's any
right
doubt about it. And even though Glasgow's on a semi-slide right now, I think they've lost 6 straight.
Yeah.
But their last 2 losses were to really good teams. They lost last Tuesday to Green, and that's probably a team that, it's probably close between them, but they lost at home to Green. But the Barren loss is not a bad loss. And then they lost Saturday to maybe arguably the best team in the region in Greenwood.
Yeah.
And that game was close throughout the whole game. That was a well-played game by Glasgow. So,
yeah. And you mentioned Bowling. He had 31 in that game.
He had 31. I mean, he's playing super right now.
Yeah.
I mean, he really is. So, Glasgow is not, they're a win away from kind of getting back on a roll. And sometimes it's not how you lose. It's not if you lose, it's how you lose.
Yeah. Right now, they are struggling to finish the games. They're in every one of these games.
Yeah, well, and eventually, sometimes you'll eventually get over that hump.
Yeah, I mean, at some point in time, and it's right. I mean, we've seen this in basketball before. They have that one game where they make that shot and they win that game, and then
it's confidence.
Yeah, everything
momentum,
changes mentally for them, and because it's not a talent issue.
No, it's not. So they're. It seems like to me they're maybe starting to turn the page a little bit. Barren has won 3 straight, and they swept the district this past week. They got a huge challenge tomorrow. They have Greenwood.
Yeah,
and it's also senior night, so that'll be a big one. Obviously, it's Greenwood, Warren Central, and Bowling Green have separated from everybody else. Greenwood has knocked off Warren Central in double overtime.
Yeah, without Cade Stinnett.
Without Cade Stinnett, their best player. So they're obviously, they're 19-3 and playing in that district. So they're obviously really, 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 really good. And it seems like they finally have broken into that club.
Yeah.
That top echelon of the 4th region.
Yeah. Coached by former Glasgow Scotty Will McCoy there, who was also an assistant at Barren, right?
Yeah, played at Glasgow, but was Warren's assistant for about 5 years, I believe.
Yeah, so I mean, he's
done a good job, no question.
Yeah, absolutely has. Real quick on the district setup. So the district tournament begins on February 21st. It'll be at Glasgow. The 2 girls games will be.
That's on a Monday.
Yep, that's on a Monday. So we'll do a show and break down like we do every year. What needs to happen for these teams. To be successful. It'll be a show pretty much dedicated to the district tournament setup. And then the boys' games will be played 1 a night, 1 on Tuesday and then 1 on Wednesday of that week, February 22nd, February 23rd, and then February 24th will be the girls' final, February 25th will be the boys' final. The region and tournament will start on the Sunday, I believe, so I'm guessing they'll do the tournament draw maybe right after the district tournaments are wrapped up on Friday night. I think they did that either last year or 2 years ago. So that'll all be a whirlwind of a couple of weeks there as we do the districts and the region.
3 weeks away.
Yep, 3 weeks away. Unbelievable, really.
3 weeks from today.
No, it's unbelievable, isn't it, John? You mentioned the Greenwood thing. I wanted to talk real quick about what else is going on around in the region. Greenwood's without Cade Stinnett, from what I understand, at least until the district tournament. I don't think he'll be back before then. From what I was told,
they showed him the other night on television. He was out of his walking boot.
Well, I guess maybe he'll be back quicker than people expected.
Right.
But they still beat Warren Central in double overtime in that game. That was an impressive win on their part.
Double overtime.
Yeah, they got some young guys who can really shoot the ball.
That's one of the separators that they have from a lot of teams.
Yes.
They make shots.
Yeah.
And the ability to make shots is really important today. You can defend, and defensively it keeps you in games sometimes. Mm-hmm. But to consistently win, you got to make shots.
Yeah. It's one of those things that sounds like the most obvious thing in the world, but it's difficult to explain, I guess, how that affects the momentum of a game, making a shot.
Emotions.
At a critical time.
Yes, yeah. The psyche.
Yep. Yeah, it's kind of an amazing thing.
Right.
And then Warren Central, I'm not sure. Warren Central had the COVID issues. They had players that missed quite a few games, missed the game against Bowling Green when they lost that one 46-42. I mean, right now, I know a lot of people probably still like Bowling Green and got a lot, but I do still think Greenwood and Warren Central, full strength, are the better two teams. I think that doesn't mean Bowling Green can't beat either one of them, because obviously they can. Mm-hmm. But full strength, I think they're at the top, and Bowling Green is right behind them. I think everybody else should be scared of Bowling Green. You got Barren County out there. I think they were fourth right now in the Daily News poll. I vote in that. I think that's where I put them on my poll. And then, Clinton County and Todd County Central have good records. I'm still not sure how good they are, though.
I don't know. Like I said, I haven't seen them, but you just
they've not played the same level of schedule as those other four teams ahead of them have.
That's true. And in fact, Barren, outside of Warren Central, I don't know if they've had a loss in the region.
Yeah.
I mean, all their losses are out of region.
Yeah. Yeah, because they've played a tough schedule.
That's exactly right.
So, and then, I don't know. You look at it, you got those three teams in the 14th district. I'm sure a lot of people in some of the other districts will look in the 13th and 16th and say, well, these teams are really good. But I'm not sure if, like, Glasgow wouldn't be the fifth best team. I don't know. I'd say potentially they are, because I think they've got the talent to be the fifth best team. They just got to figure out how to close out some of these games.
True.
So, it'll be an interesting kind of shape up for the regional tournament. There will be one team that could win the region that will not be there out of that 14th district. So
no question about it.
That makes life pretty interesting.
You only got to go through two of them, not all three.
Yeah, fortunately. All right, it's Brown Sports Bag, brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Well, John, on the girls' side of the 15th district, everything is pretty much sewn up. The Barren County Trojanettes beat Glasgow on Friday, Allen County on Saturday, won both games handily. They're just clearly the best team in the district at the moment. They can't possibly not be the one seed because nobody else has the wins. Nobody has a win against them. So
yeah, well, 2, 3, and 4 is not sold.
No, it is not, and it's going to be an interesting battle down the stretch because we got some key games left. Same with the boys for Glasgow. The girls have 4 games left. 2 of them against Allen, 1 against Monroe, and they've played well enough that they could win all of them, and the other 2 teams could beat them. It could go any way.
Yeah, there is not a lot of separation between Allen, Monroe, and Glasgow. No. I don't think in girls.
Yeah,
I think it's really, really close, really, really even.
Mm-hmm.
And if you give the coaches truth serum, I know they don't want to play Barren. Nobody. That's so obvious.
Yeah.
Barron's the clear second best team in the region. They don't want to play them. So these end of the regular season games between those 3 schools.
Mm-hmm.
are absolutely critical, and even I think for Allen even more critical because they have had the luck of how things have worked out the last couple of years of playing Barren.
Yeah, right.
And And oftentimes, Allen has played better at the end of the year, but they just so happen not to take care of business in the regular season. And I know Allen will do everything they can to stay away from Barren because you saw what happened Saturday night. I mean, Barren just shellacked Allen.
And really,
it wasn't even close, hammered.
Yeah, and really, I expected that game to be closer.
I
than
did
that.
too. I was surprised. It was 61-33, and it was a no contest.
You know, on consecutive days, Barren did something at the end of the first quarter against Glasgow and against Allen. They closed out a 15-0 run at the end of the first quarter against Glasgow, and I think it was a 9-0 run at the end of the first quarter against Allen. And I don't know, you and I have talked about this, but it's been a long time. When you have good teams, what they do so well is finish quarters and halves. And that's exactly what the Trojanettes did in both those games, and they've been doing pretty well lately. Even when they struggle offensively like they did against Monroe earlier in the week, they close out the game on an 8-0 run, and Monroe never sniffed the idea of getting another basket.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good week for Barren, knocking off your three district games. Now, the game Monday against Monroe was close. That was Barren's first game in 10 days, and Monroe had played some recently. And I do think Monroe is talented enough to give Barren a good game, and they did. They were up. Was Monroe up at half? I believe they were up 4 at half.
They were up by 1, I think, before Barren went on the 8-0 run to close out the game.
That's correct. And then by the end of the game, Barren was pulling away from them. But that game was close, and I thought it'd be close. The first game was a blowout, but Monroe has enough talent for these games to be close. Monroe has enough talent to beat Allen and Glasgow.
Yeah.
But will they? I don't know. I mean, I have no idea, you know. And then the Glasgow Barren game. I mean, I don't think the score ended up being, 67-38, Barren. It was closer than that for a while.
Yeah.
And then Barren's pressure just gave Glasgow all kinds of fits.
Yeah.
I don't know how many turnovers Glasgow had, but they were a bunch. And a lot of them were live ball turnovers. Those are the worst turnover you can make is live ball. You can live with a walk. You can live with throwing it in the stands because you're making the other team take a ball out.
Yeah.
But, man, against the press and you throw it to the other team, those live ball turnovers, they turn into instant scores and momentum turners.
Yeah.
And Barren is Barren's not overly quick. Katie Murphy's quick.
Yeah.
But Barren's longer than Glasgow, I'll just say that.
Yeah.
And I just thought their size and bothered Glasgow a lot. And Glasgow had done much better handling the ball. But they didn't quite face this type of heat that they faced the other night. And they really, for the most part, didn't give themselves a chance to win because once they got in the half court, they did a good job of running their offense, especially in the first half.
Yeah.
And but overall, outside of Mia Cassidy, she had 19 points, and I thought she played really well. Yeah. No other Glasgow player had more than 3.
Right. You know, there were a couple of things about that game. You mentioned the pressure. It was the pressure at the end of the first quarter when Barren went on the 15-0 run. I think the other run was in the third quarter, and that kind of sealed the game right there.
Raven Ennis had a run.
Yeah,
she
did.
She had a run where she didn't have a ton of points for the game.
She finished with 14, all of them in the first half.
That's right, and they were like steal 3, here 3. I mean, it was just like, Barren was very well balanced. They had 4 kids in double figures. Varney, I think.
Had 15.
Macy Lockhart, Katie Murphy, and obviously Raven Ennis. So they were very balanced as opposed to Glasgow. Only had one kid that really made any shots at all. But, yeah, that was a game in which it looked like at first it was going to be, but the game got away from Glasgow quickly. And they'll have to solve that Friday night.
Yeah. You know, an interesting thing, we've talked about Mia Cassidy and her ability to shoot the 3 and that kind of stuff. One of the things that we've been seeing more of her, especially lately, and in the Barren game, is she's gotten a lot better at attacking the rim, no matter who's defending her, getting her shot up, drawing fouls. So she's really developing as a player. And
I agree.
She's a junior.
She's a junior and has had tremendous improvement her last couple of years. I mean, as a basketball player, I mean, she was always a streaky shooter.
Yeah.
You had to guard her from the 3, but you didn't worry about a lot of other things she did. But, man, she has really improved her game. She plays hard. I really like how she plays. I mean, she not only does she play hard, but I like her attitude on the floor.
Yeah.
She's aggressive, but she's not dirty or anything like that.
Yeah.
And she looks really coachable. And of course, I really like her dad, Craig. He's been in here a lot, but former athletic director over there. But she's a good player.
Yeah. One thing about you going back to the Monroe County thing, that game that Monroe played against Barren,
that's good enough for them to if they play like that against a lot of teams.
Yeah,
they would be in good shape, but they came off that game and got beat 25 against Metcalf.
Yeah,
they only put 28 points up. So I don't know. I can't figure them out sometimes.
Yeah, I was going to say that may have been the best game I've seen them actually play in person in a couple of years, really. And I was like, oh,
Paisley Ford's good.
She is good.
The Veach girl's good. They got two good players.
Yeah. But they just don't always play that well obviously, because they only scored 28 against Metcalf. The week before that, I think it was, they only scored 28 against Cumberland County.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's they're an enigma at times.
Yeah, I would say that right now Glasgow may be the most consistent other team in the district. Every performance game in and game out. Minus that Barren County game where they did end up turning the ball over quite a bit against the pressure.
Right.
But no matter who they were playing, because they turned around on Saturday, they played Greenwood, a team that beat them by, I think, 20 earlier in the season.
Right.
They ended up losing the game by 4, but, I mean, I thought they had a good chance of winning that game.
Yep.
And right now, Greenwood is third in that Daily News poll, and probably deserve to be.
I don't know, maybe. I mean,
it's hard to tell.
It's hard to tell. I haven't seen Franklin. They've got a.
I like Franklin.
They got an impressive record. Metcalf is, maybe they're up there. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think there's a gap.
Yeah,
between Barren and everybody else.
Yeah, there's Bowling Green, and there's a gap to Barren, and then there's a gap to everybody
right,
else.
Right. But you're right. Glasgow is consistent, and I don't know how well they match up against Barren. They'll probably handle the ball better Friday at their place simply because oftentimes the second time you face a team that has pressure, you get a little bit more used to it, you get a little bit more adjusted and things like that, and not everybody can do that to them.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just matchups.
Yeah.
I mean, Allen doesn't play a style to do that per se to Glasgow.
Right.
Monroe doesn't do a lot They times.
They try sometimes. They're not always very successful.
Right.
At it.
So Glasgow is. I've said this before. They're very well coached, and they do what they do quite well. Mm-hmm. Bots the game before Barren against Green, she had 18.
Yeah.
She's really improved.
Yep.
You got Kaylin Hale on the boards, and she averages about 8 points a game. But she obviously does some things well, and they're another team that I'm not saying they're a year away, but probably they're going to be even better next year. Yeah,
they have 3 seniors: Micaiah Fogel, Mariona Bradley, and Adrian Scott. I think it's her last name. Fogel and Bradley play some. Scott will come in in mop-up duty. So basically you're looking at a young team. Yeah. Plus they've got a freshman in Cynthia Austin and a 7th grader in Kayla Kirkpatrick who are getting playing time. Right. So, I would say this, at the rate that they're developing from last year to this year and as this year's gone along, they may be a team to be worried about come next year.
I agree.
If everybody's healthy in that jazz.
I agree. But you want to win when you can.
That is true.
So you never know what can happen
That's right.
next year. So you better try to win right now. And I know that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I know. It's not saying wait until next year. It is saying we are trying to win this year. But if all things hold true, they will be a scary team come next year. Real quick, around the region, Bowling Green went and played in the LIT. They lost to Mayo by 1.
Mayo a top 20 team.
Yeah. I think they firmly cemented themselves as maybe I'd say they're probably in the top 10.
There's no doubt they're in the top 10 in the state.
I mean, interestingly enough, Bullitt East ended up winning the LIT to beat Sacred Heart in the championship game last night, which just shocked me because I didn't think anybody was beating Sacred Heart in that tournament. And Bullitt East is a team that Bowling Green beat at their place pretty handily earlier in the
They
month.
are, but Bullitt East is not scared of Sacred Heart. They play each other all the time.
That's true.
And the familiarity of it makes a difference. They know each other, they're well scouted, and Bullitt East is not. Sacred Heart can take a 4 against most teams, and they're up 20 before the game starts.
Right.
Intimidation.
Yeah.
Bullitt East, that's not a factor.
Yeah.
But you're right. That makes the Bowling Green win over Bullitt East even more impressive.
Yeah, you mentioned the matchup situation, earlier when we were talking about the district matchups. Well, I mean, it looks like in the top 10, that may be the case this year in girls basketball as well, because McCracken County's beaten Bowling Green twice.
Yep.
Bowling Green has played well, beaten some other of the top teams. lost to some of the top teams. I mean, it's kind of a fascinating girls basketball season at the state level. I think if you just kind of look around, it's some interesting teams, some really good players out there this year.
There are, and we're 3 weeks away.
Yeah,
it's hard to believe to the tournament.
Yep. All right, it's Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Well, John, the Super Bowl is set. Long-suffering Bengals fans get a chance to rid themselves of whatever curse the Bengals have had where they've not been able to win a Super Bowl. You know, the interesting thing about the Bengals organization is it was founded by Paul Brown, right?
Yes.
Who was just the consummate winner with the Cleveland Browns. But he founds the Bengals, and they've had good teams, but they've been one of those from the very beginning. They've never quite been able to get over the hump. And it's kind of a fascinating thought in that juxtaposition, I guess, that Paul Brown did so much with the Browns, and then he founded the Bengals and did fine, but they just haven't been quite there.
I think it's his son's and owns it now, right?
Yeah. Mike Brown, I think is his name.
And, yeah. Well, I'm happy for him. I mean, I've got friends who are Bengals fans, and they've been long suffering in a lot of regards. I mean, it's not like they've never been to the Super Bowl. They have.
Yeah, twice.
They've been there twice, and with
the John Candy Super Bowl, I believe, was one of them.
Boomer Esiason, quarterback, 1 year, and
Ken Anderson the first time around.
So it's not like they hadn't been there, but tough road. I mean, they knocked off the Raiders at home, and I think they were probably the favorite that game. But then going to Tennessee, knocking off the number 1 seed there, and then going to Kansas City and down 21-3, and it looked like lights out, and they came back and won. Give them credit. I mean, they were give the organization credit because they did not do what everybody else has done in the last couple of years. They did not fire their head coach.
Yeah,
Zach Taylor, right? He was he won. Maybe one game
two games his first year.
Two games his first year, and maybe 4 the next year. He's like 6 and whatever, 20-something, right. And they kept him.
Yeah.
And now he's in the Super Bowl. And oftentimes with young coaches, they get rid of them, find a way. And they took advantage of that bad season and drafted, obviously, they had a number 1 pick, and they got it right.
Yeah. Yeah,
Joe Burrow. And then this past year, they had the 5th overall pick, and they got it right.
Mm-hmm.
With the receiver.
Yeah, Jamar Chase. So they're doing something right because they got good players. Yeah.
And the year before, they drafted T. Higgins out of Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
So they've built
it. Had a big game.
It's not like they're signing free agents to come in. They're doing it the right way. And, Joe Burrow he's a winner. I mean, it was not a fluke what he did at LSU.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, he had a lot of talent, but they won like a dominant team should win. And,
right.
And he was the trigger man, and he's been good ever since he stepped forth in this league. He has a way about him where he makes plays, and dudes play for him.
He's one of those Joes. He's a Joe Montana kind of guy in the sense that Joe Montana was just always calm. It didn't matter what the circumstance was, and if you look back over his history, there are aspects of him as a quarterback that he didn't have the biggest arm. He was a good athlete. He wasn't. There was nothing specific about him other than his mentality and his calmness, and that seems to be Joe Burrow.
That's a good point.
Joe Burrow's arm is good enough. I mean, it's not a Josh Allen or any of that kind of stuff.
He's athletic, but not Lamar Jackson athletic.
Yeah, he's a good enough athlete.
Yeah, he made 2 big runs for first downs against Kansas City, and I think that calmness and it borders between cocky and confidence, and he kind of walks that border. But man, he's an incredible player, and he's going to get. He's on his 3rd year of a 5-year deal, so Cincinnati needs to take advantage of it now. Where you can still pay him on his rookie money, where you can pay other people, because in a couple of years,
they won't be able to do that.
They're going to have to give him the money, but. He's special. They got a special. They got a kicker that's special.
Oh yeah,
that's another. Only kicker, I think, drafted in the 5th or 6th round out of Florida, and people laughed at Cincinnati. When Cincinnati makes a draft, oftentimes they're easy to criticize.
Yeah.
But when you look at their drafts the last 2 or 3 years, they've hit on a lot more than they've missed. So you all that combined with, let's be honest, Kansas City kind of collapsed.
Yeah.
If that was the quarterback from San Francisco,
Jimmy Garoppolo, yeah.
I mean, he had been vilified.
Oh, yeah.
Patrick Mahomes.
They'd be roasting him in the streets.
Patrick Mahomes was bad in the second half. I mean, he was bad. I mean, he's lucky the game did not end on an interception return.
Oh, yeah, because it should have.
It should have ended
hit
on
the
an
dude
interception.
dead in the hands.
And I've never seen him play that bad. I mean, he was – I mean, he's a great player, but he was bad, and he contributed to Cincinnati getting back in the game.
You know, what's fascinating about him is I made this analogy to someone earlier that he is a Brett Favre kind of player sometimes. And what I mean is, like, he can do so many amazing things with the ball, with his feet, with his personality, you know, throwing the ball all these different angles. But at the same time, sometimes he just gets –
You got greedy.
Yeah, he just goes for too much.
Yeah.
And
scrambles too much, hold the ball too long,
Yeah.
and rather than taking a field goal or maybe punting or whatever he tries to make at times – too many plays because he is a gifted thrower and he has a lot of great players. But at times this year in particular, especially early in the year, the mistakes he made yesterday were some of the mistakes he were made early in the year.
Yeah, when
and
we were
looked like
looking
he
at
solved it. Looked like he solved it, but it came back and bit him.
Yeah, because earlier in the year, there was a lot of what is he up to? Why is he doing this? And you mentioned taking the field goal. So there's 3 seconds left, 5 seconds left, whatever, right before halftime. And they run a play.
It was not designed to go to Hill.
Yeah,
it was not.
Hill was just drawing attention. There were two guys on him, and he's not across the goal line.
Andy Reid took the bullet for him.
Yeah.
But it was designed to where you got one read.
It's probably Travis Kelce right in the middle of the field.
If it's not there, you throw it away, kick a field goal.
Yep.
And he didn't take it.
Yeah. And it was clear, I think it was Tony Romo in that moment was saying, I don't know why he did that.
Yeah, well, the momentum shifted.
Yeah. I mean, and it's like Kansas City never recovered from making that mistake right at halftime.
They could have gone up 14 with the field goal, and a touchdown puts it even. I mean,
actually, they'd have been up 21 with the field goal. It'd have been 24-3.
I thought it was 14.
No, they got to 10. That's right. They got to 10.
So it was just a. I don't mind going for 5 seconds because I think if you do it right, you can probably get another play. I mean, I don't mind being aggressive. That's okay, but
he just made the wrong play.
Made the wrong play. That's correct. And didn't make any plays in the second half.
No, and I'll tell you another thing that seemed to happen in the second half. We talk about his ability to scramble, dodge pressure, and that kind of stuff. A lot of that is on his ability to move, and a lot of that is on the ability of his offensive line to maintain blocks.
Right.
It seemed as the game went along, the offensive line maybe wore down or something. The Bengals started actually getting real pressure on him, not just the kind that he can scramble out of. Guys were getting on him. They were getting to him. Even on the plays where they didn't get a sack on him, he managed to get a ball off or scrambled a little bit. They still, the intensity of the pressure picked up in the second half. His guys were obviously not able to get open. And the Bengals, for the most part, just rushed the 3 or 4 guys. They really just played the zone or played the man in zone and tried to keep the receivers from getting big plays. And that's where Patrick Mahomes looks like through this year has fallen into the trap of not just taking what's there, trying to take the next thing and not, maybe scrambling for 5 yards. He tries to throw the deep balls, one of them that should have been intercepted, those kinds of plays, mistakes that he started making.
Well, the bottom line, Cincinnati beat Kansas City twice in the last 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And,
in the exact same way, really.
Other than, I didn't think the first time that Mahomes played bad. He played bad this time, but they came back both times. Double-digit came back. The first game was at home, and they won going away, and this time was for all the marbles at Kansas City. And you just thought after the Buffalo win by Kansas City, of course, Cincinnati had a big win against Tennessee, but but you watched Buffalo and Kansas City, and you just kind of thought those are the 2 best teams.
Oh, yeah.
And Kansas City kind of rode that momentum in that first half. They jumped on them with 3 quick touchdowns. And I don't know if they hit a wall, an emotional wall, or what.
Yeah.
But after that half, I guess, they almost looked like they had emotionally nothing left to give.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the Rams are in the Super Bowl against the Bengals. Instead of the 49ers, I'm sure Bengals fans are like, yay, we don't get the 49ers this time.
Down 17-7 in the fourth, came back.
Yeah, and that's one, that game to me, was clear there was a quarterback who could make the throws that need to be made, and Jimmy Garoppolo, it looked like, just couldn't do it. And I think the Rams made some adjustments on Deebo Samuel because they did a much better job in the second half of slowing him down. He was killing them in the first half. I mean, he's just such a special talent. And one other thing about that game, both those teams have a guy, a wide receiver / whatever. Deebo Samuel for the 49ers and Cooper Kupp for the Rams. And those guys just seem to be unguardable in a lot of ways.
They really do.
It's impressive what the teams do with them.
Yeah, I mean, Cooper Kupp both are special players.
Yeah.
Do it in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Samuel's more physical, more of a runner, though Cooper Kupp makes a lot of plays after he catches it as well.
Yeah, people don't get him on the ground either.
Yeah, the difference is that I do think because of Matt Stafford, his arm's bigger, they can expand the field more, so there's more opportunities to make bigger plays for the Rams. And plus, they got Beckham. Has really been a good compliment as well.
And he played well yesterday.
He did. So they got these two dynamic weapons. But the Rams, we're saying all this, giving them all the love. Well, they only had scored 7 points with all these weapons going into the fourth quarter. And if San Francisco could have caught the ball, Matt Stafford threw a wide open pick that who knows how the game could have turned.
Oh, that was it. The game was over
because the Rams were out of timeouts all throughout the fourth quarter.
Yeah, they'd wasted 2 on challenges.
That's exactly right. And boy wonder coach, who's a really good coach, Sean McVay is really good. Would have been another coach that would have been vilified if they lost the game for clock mismanagement. Yeah. I mean, what would have the Mike McCarthy have gotten for that?
Well, it's fascinating, too. This is not the first time we've seen Sean McVay do all these, make all these kind of odd decisions about clock management.
You can't run out of timeouts in the fourth quarter of a playoff game.
Yeah, I mean, what was there, 13 minutes ago in the fourth quarter when he had his last timeout?
A wasted challenge, which if you watch the replay, you're going, why are you challenging that?
Yeah, he needs to fire whoever tells him you need to challenge that.
But you don't even take that chance with only 1 left. So I don't know if that's pressure. Could be pressure in the moment. I don't know. I mean, because that's for a smart guy, and he's a heck of a coach. Those are some odd decisions, and luckily his team made up for his mistakes.
Yeah.
And Dallas could not overcome the mistakes of Mike McCarthy. Yeah, because his team didn't play as well.
Yeah, I think in that game, I think Cal Shanahan was the better coach in that game, but the Rams had the better actual team.
I tend to agree with that. They're definitely better, and I'm not a hater of Jimmy
Garoppolo. Yeah.
I'm not a hater of Jimmy G. I do think the Rams had an advantage at the quarterback spot, though.
Yeah, I think Jimmy G's been fine. I mean, obviously he's been successful as a starter when he's not hurt for the 49ers. Yep. But there are weaknesses in his game, and the Rams were able defensively to eventually take advantage of those weaknesses in his game
after they scored enough to get the lead.
Well, to catch up too, because they could cover certain ways that Jimmy G just couldn't make those passes, and it was clear. And then Aaron Donald in the front started really getting after him, and he struggled with that too.
That's true.
Anybody would. I mean, that's not necessarily him. If people are around your feet, you're gonna have a hard time throwing a football, But it did seem that in the end, Matt Stafford could make some throws. They could make some plays. The Rams could, and it's why, the Rams traded everything they did to get him because they felt like that was the guy they needed.
Maker.
And he was.
Looks like they made the right choice.
Yeah, so it's going to be an interesting Super Bowl between the Bengals and the Rams. I don't know. I really don't know which team will win. I mean, I would guess I would take the Bengals because of Joe Burrow, but I'm not sure.
Unfortunately, we got 2 weeks.
Yeah, I hate that part. We got this all-pro Pro Bowl thing in between that nobody will play in, and it's a complete joke.
We have a 2-week window, so, we'll see. The Rams will be a favorite. I think they opened at 4.5.
Really?
And
that seems kind of big.
So we'll see. The Bengals are going to have to block that front
Aaron Donald, and all those guys up there.
That won't be easy, but 4.5. We'll see where the number goes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it'll be a fascinating Super Bowl, and I think it's a kind of a fascinating matchup of teams. But, and it'll be an interesting offseason, I think, in the NFL as some of these retired, not retired, maybe retired quarterbacks go to other places and that kind of thing. I'll talk about that in the next segment because apparently you got to go hang out with Greg Collins for a little while.
I've got to step out. I got to be in Bowling Green, so I will listen to you on the way home. Way to Bowling Green.
Sounds good. Have fun with Coach Collins. This is Brown Sports Bag. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Well, so, the internet is a fun place to be sometimes. Sometimes it's not a lot of fun. But, Tom Brady apparently retired, and then Tom Brady apparently didn't retire. Nobody's heard from Tom Brady whether or not he retired. But real quick, it would make sense if Tom Brady decides this is the last year, because the Buccaneers pretty much put all of their money into the basket of this season to try to win another Super Bowl. They brought back all the guys who had been there, some of them on the one-year contracts. Many of them took less than they could have probably gotten on the free market. Tom Brady, will take whatever money he needs in order to make it work. But I just don't know if the Buccaneers can put together the salary, the players around him with the salary requirements that they'll have to meet to do it again next year. And maybe that's why the speculation or the reporting on Tom Brady retiring, but then Tom Brady not really retiring yet, is out there, because I can imagine, because, people don't just do things blindly. They do actually talk to the people they work for and work with. And I do imagine that the head coach, Bruce Arians, the general manager, the owners, and Tom Brady and his people are all on the phone together, probably trying to figure out just how much money it will take for him to be able to play, who all they can re-sign, and can they do this again? And that'll be an interesting thing, because there'll be guys who aren't planning on playing for 20, 22 years or whatever, who who have general NFL longevity as a professional player of that 3 to 5 year window, and they need to make their money in that window, because they're not, injuries and other things are going to prevent them from continuing to play. So those are all the considerations, and I imagine those are all the conversations that are going on with the Buccaneers and Tom Brady and his folks at the moment. He may step out. He may have already stepped out while we were on the air here today and said, hey, look, I'm retiring, I'm done, because they can't work that out. And, he'll go down as the greatest quarterback of all time. I imagine, in terms of just pure winning, yeah, he has to be considered the greatest of all time. He's been a spectacular quarterback. I've never really been a big Tom Brady fan. I mean, I appreciate his ability. I appreciate his ability to win. I appreciate the work that he's put in, because obviously when he came to Tampa Bay 2 years ago, he changed the general work culture at Tampa Bay, showing up when he didn't have to be, getting the receivers and others to come and work with him. That's, if you want to win, you have to set that tone. You can't ask others to set it for you. And obviously he does want to win. And obviously that's part of his personality makeup. That is rare. A lot of people don't really work that hard when they don't have to. They don't have that obsession. I think of it as an obsession, really. Some people are obsessed not with the winning as much as they are in the process of doing whatever it is they love to do. And that, they work on the finer points of it all the time. And other people are not as obsessive. They have hobbies they'd like to pursue outside of their work environment. So, that's universal, not just sports. So that's interesting. Ben Roethlisberger did retire, stepped away from the Steelers, had a great career with the Steelers, has, a lot of people like to knock on him and how he has performed here in the late part of his career, not being quite as good as he was when he was younger. But there's one play in the history of Steelers football that people might forget. And I think part of the deal with this play is Ben Roethlisberger was a big guy, but he was also a good athlete at his size whenever he came into the NFL. So we go back, they were playing the Colts, I believe it was in the AFC Championship, and Jerome Bettis, they're just trying to basically run out the clock. Jerome Bettis runs the ball, fumbles, they're down close to the goal line, defensive back picks it up, runs, and Ben Roethlisberger manages to make what essentially is a game-saving tackle on a defensive back that kept the Colts from returning the fumble for a touchdown. They went on and played in the Super Bowl, the Steelers did. So, I mean, there are moments in his career that people just forget how good he was physically. And he's, if you look at a present-day quarterback who may be very similar to him, it may be a Josh Allen, a big guy with a big arm. Josh Allen's a better athlete than Ben Roethlisberger was, even younger in his career. But in terms of hard to bring down, can get extra yardage with his feet, basically by leaning over people or running over people. Fall forward for 3 yards. It's kind of like that. But I enjoy watching him as a player. Now he's another one of those. I'm not sure personality wise if I'm down with all of his get down, as they like to say. But yeah, I appreciated him as a player as well. And then, there's going to be some curious questions in the offseason. It'll be what will Aaron Rodgers do? What will the Packers move on from him? A lot of people have focused on his COVID answer avoidance in the last few months. But let's not forget that on draft day last year is when the drama really started, and it became an offseason of Aaron Rodgers making it seemingly about himself in a lot of ways. And I think I was rubbed wrong from that point. Whatever happened after that is icing on the cake, I guess. I don't know. But just generally speaking, I just didn't really care for his approach, especially what seemed to be his approach, at least publicly, toward his teammates, or some of his teammates, not all of them. Obviously, it's always like that. Some people get along, some don't. But and let's not also forget, those guys in those situations, like Aaron Rodgers, get asked a lot of questions repeatedly, the same questions at every press conference. And I'm sure at some point in time they begin to answer them in the most ridiculous way possible, because they're tired of answering these questions. They're like, why don't you just read that story from last week or last month? But either way, there are ways to handle things and ways not to handle things. And starting with draft day last year, I didn't particularly care for the way Aaron Rodgers responded to some of the challenges he was facing. Didn't kind of care for the way that he threw people under the bus. So, it'll be curious to see what he does. It'll be curious to see. I just don't. He may still be a Packer next year, but things just have not ended well for him and the Packers in the last few years. Some of that is obviously on him. Some of it is on the coaching staff, on other players on the team. That's the way that goes. So it'll be interesting to see what he does in the offseason. Russell Wilson, it'll be interesting to see what he does in the offseason. He's another one who probably won't be with the team he's with, and because the Seahawks are going to have to rebuild that team. They've been riding that Russell Wilson train, and obviously it ran off the tracks this year. He couldn't maintain physically. They don't have the pieces around him. They're going to have to rebuild that team from scratch, more or less. And so it'll be curious to see whether he wants to stick around there in Seattle and go through that process, or he wants to move on somewhere else where maybe they're closer to winning right now, and he can jump on that train. If Tom Brady leaves the Buccaneers, that may be a team with the maneuvering to bring in a Rodgers or a Russell Wilson. There are plenty of other options out there as well. Places like, I don't know, Denver. They obviously are close defensively. They're far away in other areas. But, that's the way that goes, I suppose. One other thing I wanted to talk about before I get out of here. It's not just retirement season for a lot of people. It's also apparently firement season or termination season. Chris Mack is out as the men's basketball coach in Louisville. I'm not so sure this had as much to do with how the team was performing at the moment. Obviously, when winning is expected and winning doesn't happen, it makes it easier to make changes with coaches and players at the professional level and that kind of thing. But obviously, the situation in the offseason with the assistant coach and the suspension for, I think it was the first 10 games for Chris Mack, just affected the tone of the program. It obviously affected how the players responded, because they started with Peegs as the leading the program to start the season, and they adjusted to how he did things. Chris Mack comes back, and he's going to do things a little differently, because no two people are the same, even if they're in the same program and they more or less follow the same ideas of what they want to get done. How they evaluate the circumstances is going to be different, game in and game out, and probably even in practice in and practice out. So that situation with the assistant coach in the offseason, the suspension, set the tone for the administration probably to make the change if everything wasn't 100%, and obviously it was not. The Cardinals struggled with Mack on the bench. It didn't seem like they ever really got a set rotation. So, he's out. Peegs is in. He'll finish off the season, I guess. Apparently they're going to have a meeting tomorrow. The athletic department and board of regents, I think it is. And so we'll see. Maybe they're going to make some sort of move on the coaching front there, or make some sort of move some other way, because they got to find athletic director and et cetera at Louisville. So things are up in the air a little bit there for Cardinals and their fans. Mason Faulkner, Glasgow kid, former Caverna player. He's had a good season so far with them, his first year there. So hopefully whatever happens, it works out well for him. And good luck to him. And, hey, Kentucky fans, I'm sure you're excited about that 18-point win over Kansas. Good for you guys. This is Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be back next week.
Thanks for listening, and be sure and join James and John once again next Monday at 4 for the Brown Sports Bag, a local weekly sports machine presented by McDonald's of Glasgow.
Coming soon to your FM dial, this is Fox Sports Radio, WCDS Glasgow, AM 1230.